Hello, I'm Peter Gore, and I'm going to talk to you about how do you age better. But before I do that, I want to just go back to the framework that we're using and do a very quick recap on it in case you hadn't seen it before, or just to remind you if you had. So we call this the life curve, and there are 15 things. If you ignore the pre-markers, the 4 at the top, the general loss of fitness and strength, the 15 things down the left-hand side are things that we need to do every day or two. And they start with you can't reach to cut your toenails, and they finish down the bottom with you can't eat independently. If you can't do these 15 things, you will not be able to live independently. So you will either be getting care from friends, family member, professional caregivers, or a combination of those, or you will need to live in an institution where you can get that care from professional caregivers. So what this video series is about is, can you maintain that ability for longer, and how would you do that? It's not a particular age at which you lose this. So just to remind you, the earliest that we've discovered people losing the ability to cut their toenails is 2% of men, 3% of women in England at the age of 42. The latest I can find is a small group of women in California who can still cut their toenails at the age of 100. So chronological age is not really very useful. It's much easier to think about the stage that somebody's at, and then that tells us what kind of things we might recommend, very specific things we might recommend that would be suitable for that stage. If we think of, we call him Bert because we have done before, and we'll split him into upper Bert and lower Bert. There are two trajectories, there are many trajectories, but we'll look at two different trajectories. So in this case, upper Bert has managed to stay at full wash for this entire period of time, and lower Bert has declined and bumping along the bottom, and lower Bert is getting full-time care. Upper Bert might be getting some help in the home, or he might have used some equipment, but essentially he will remain reasonably independent. There's not much difference in life expectancy, if at all. We know that some of the things don't really make any difference to life expectancy. Walking 400 yards, you can keep that for another 2.6 years without affecting mortality rates. But there might be a small difference. But essentially what we're looking for is more better years. We just want to have a very small period of decline, or none, at the end of our lives, and keep the abilities for as long as possible, because that means we can do the things that we need to do and want to do. There are 4 different ways that are in the research that we did that show that there's an order in which you do things that is the most enabling. The first thing is, I've just shown or just explained to you that you can stay off the life curve for potentially a 60-year period. So building reserve is about building more capacity than you need to do those 15 things, which means that it takes longer for you to lose those abilities, or you don't lose those abilities. So that's building reserve. Secondly, if you lose the ability, get it back. Thirdly, there is a role for technology and techniques, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And of course, a role for care. Care is very important. Now, there aren't just 15 things that we need to do. There are 15 important things, but lots of other things that we want to do and perhaps need to do as at whatever age we are. And these principles apply essentially to anything that we're trying to do insofar as it's applicable. We would look to follow these general principles. If you want to know more about the background to healthy aging, please watch this channel video, then ask questions in the comments sections. We're going to talk about the role of equipment and techniques in healthy aging in this particular video. So just to remind you again, these two we've already covered in other videos, but we're going to focus on equipment and techniques in this particular video, and then we'll do another one on the role of care in healthy aging. again, just a reminder that at every point where we have a challenge, we have the opportunity to make a choice about whether we're going to rely on others, whether we're going to try and get an ability back, or whatever. And equipment is important as we get older. There's lots of equipment. There's some quite nice looking pieces of equipment like this. Shower stool, if you can't stand long enough or you can't bend down safely and reach your feet while you're in the shower, then a little fold down stool on the wall like this will make a huge difference to you. That's a very simple piece of equipment. We go right the way through to much more complex pieces of equipment, but we might cover some of those in other videos in the future. So again, this is a simple thing, needs proper installation. There are lots of different ones. They range from nice looking ones like this to things that I wouldn't want on the wall of my shower, but people make their own decisions. And then we have techniques. And it's really important that you can learn some of these because they're really easy to do, most of them, and they cost little or nothing, but they keep your ability for longer. And so let's talk about that. So this is a test called the sit to stand, where we count the number of people. It's a typical geriatric test, if you like, that's what they call it. Don't like the term, but that's what they call it. Geriatric test, we count how many times you can stand in a 30-second period, but you're not allowed to push down and use your arms in any way. So you've literally just got to use the power in your legs and your balance and strength there. But lots of people have difficulty doing that, particularly from a low chair. This chair is set at a specific height, 17 inches in old units. But lots of people have all sorts of different heights of chair. The higher your chair, the less strength you need to be able to get out of it. But there are techniques anyway. So this isn't a very good picture, but it's the best that I could find in the time. So there are two things technique-wise if you're struggling to get out from a chair. The first is to shuffle slowly forward, which allows you to get nearer the edge of the seat. And then you put your nose over your toes. Now, you clearly have to make sure your chair's big enough for you not to get stuck in. But he is actually putting his nose over his toes. And by doing that, you reduce the forces required to get out of the chair. In fact, actually, it's quite hard to get up from the chair, particularly without using your arms, if you don't put your nose over your toes. It's a natural technique, and if you make sure you're doing that, it's much easier to get out. So again, shuffle forward and lean forward with your nose over your toes, and then push down on something if you want to do that safely. The less strength you have in the legs, the more likely you are to need upper body strength to push down. Of course, you could go back to one of our previous videos and build the strength in your quads, and then you'd be able to get up more easily without needing to push down. But anyway, this is a technique that you can use. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about the role of equipment or techniques. There are lots and lots of technologies promising to help you age better and stay independent for longer. They range from really simple things like can openers and grab rails, though many of those aren't very pretty, but there are some good ones too, right the way through to something called exoskeletons, that are suits that you can wear that complement your own muscles. And everything in between. And we'll talk about those in other videos. They have their strengths and weaknesses. If you have any questions about specific items, drop me a comment and we'll try to answer those questions. Remember, very few things are safe and suitable for everyone. So always make sure you get good advice if you're not sure. That's really important. See you in the next video. Thank you for your time.